Hello, my fellow readers. This is Dark Symphony 777 with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story. And finally, listen to my opinion. My opinion is different of everyone in the world, so please respect that. As well as if you have any future fan fictions you want me to read or review, let me know what they are in the comment section below. So, the story I am doing a review of is Scale by Short Skirts and Explosions. It is a My Little Pony fanfiction, and I actually have heard of Short Skirts and Explosions. He's actually a really well-known author in the My Little Pony fandom. I think he's retired at this point. Not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure he is officially retired. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I hope I'm not wrong, because I would like to see a follow-up to the story. But, going back to Scale specifically, Scale is a very interesting fanfiction because I'm gonna lay it out pretty plainly. There's not really much of a plot on the surface, that is. But once you get into the nitty gritty and you start reading between the lines, it actually shows a very, very thematically appropriate story. So, let's actually get into the plot. I don't want to spoil everything when it comes to the plot because this is one of those stories that I want everyone to kind of read for themselves. There's a reason I leave a link to the stories in the description so that you can read these stories in case you ever want to do. What this story is, you really need to read it in order to understand the plot. But the basic premise of this story is Daring Do, this chick, wakes up on a beach. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know what happened. We don't know what happened. All we know is Daring Do wakes up. All she has is her clothing, her plinth helmet, a compass, a glowstone which she breathes into it and kind of acts as a flashlight, a broken book that she kind of leaves behind, and a eyeglass case. And then she opens up the compass and it's pointing east. Now, if you don't know anything about Short Skirts Explosions, he is the guy who wrote Astro. For those of you who don't know what Astro is, it's apparently a very, very well-known My Little Pony fanfiction. Not on the level of like Fall of Equestria, but very well-known. And its basic idea is that Rainbow Dash is flying east. So this has thematic connections. I have to guess it's probably a prequel to Astro. And Short Skirts and Explosions kind of wrote both of them. He kind of wrote Astro under a different alias, but they're written by the same guy. Back to the plot. The premise. And Daring Do travels east, and she travels across all these different locations. She starts out on the beach with some ruins, and then she gets to, I think, a little island, and then to like windy plains. Then we get to like an aqua labyrinth, then a swamp, then a mountain, then a desert, then a abandoned city, then space, and then a library at the end of nowhere. It's a very atmospheric story that carries a lot of thematic elements across the whole thing. And it's very much a showcase of the author's skills as an author on its purest form. Because this story is all atmosphere. It's all trying to cram as much atmosphere and world building into this mysterious place as possible without using a single ounce of dialogue. Do you know how hard it is to write a story without any dialogue? It is immensely hard. It's one of the hardest things any author can reasonably do because it takes a special skill set and a special idea of where you want to do with the story to tell an entire tale without telling a single bit of dialogue. It takes it shows the level of talent this author has for the story, that he did this entire thing without showcasing like anyone saying anything. Granted, there is dialogue, but that's at the very end of the story when we find out. Spoiler alert! Kind of spoiler alert. Daring Do somehow ends up in Ponyville, and she's just completely confused, and everyone and the main six is confused, and they're talking like wondering, why do you look like Daring Do? And there's lots of questions that are never answered, and and that's another thing with this story. There is a very big sense of ambiguity across the entire story. You really don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening. You don't know how Daring Do's got in this situation. You don't know how she gets out of the situation. Even at the end, it doesn't answer anything. This is 70,000 plus words of straight ambiguity, and it works because the author never attempts to answer anything, because it's all about Daring Do's journey. And that is, quite honestly, a very, very tall order to do. And the author deserves all the respect for actually managing to do it without resorting to dialogue, without resorting to like answering any of the questions. Because once you go in, you don't know what's going on. You get out, you still don't know what's going on. And that's pretty much the premise. There is a lot of nitty gritty, but this is one of those cases where, trust me, you really need to read the story in order to understand what is going on between the lines. There's a lot of thematic elements. There's a lot of atmospheric elements. There's the fact that all the chapters except for one are technically titles of Daring Do books, like Daring Do and the Shifting Sand, because that's how all her books apparently go. And it plays with that formula. It's really clever, and I don't really have any complaints about that. Character-wise, there's really only Daring Do, and Daring Do is despite not saying a single word until the very end, like the last thing said in the story is like her only words. Is a very complex and motivated character. Like, she starts out like justifiably confused about what happened. She looks at the book. She looks at the broken book, and so she decides to march eastward. She is determined. She goes through pain. She doesn't even know what's going on half the time. As the story goes on, she becomes more wary of everything around her because the body is taking her toll. She becomes confused when she finds out she for some reason she hasn't eaten the entire journey. She hasn't drank the entire journey. She hasn't dreamed. She has weird dreams about like symbols, which are the main 6 cutie marks. The fact that she keeps looking at her, like she opens her eyeglass case, she keeps looking at the eyeglass, and as the story goes on, her mane actually gets gains colors, the rainbow colors symbolizing Rainbow Dash, but we don't know what her connection with Rainbow Dash is until the Silent Cities, when like her reflection comes alive and it's actually Rainbow Dash, and she kind of just messes with her. It's despite what I'm saying, again, I'm not really doing Daring's character justice in this case. It's good. It's really good. But Daring in this story is a very, very heavily thematic take of Daring Do, because it relies a lot on understanding thematic elements, like the whole novel idea, the whole her not eating, not drinking, not dreaming, not sleeping, and able to kind of push herself to the point where she doesn't even know what's going on, and transcending all this and breaking down in the library at the end of the world. It's a very, very nuanced take that, again, is very well crafted without her saying a word. It makes it a lot. It makes Daring's adventure that much more worthwhile to get through because you just don't know what's going on. Because you actually start to sympathize and try and figure out everything that's going on with Daring Do and surrounding her character. I think it's a very nice touch on that. That's really all I have to say about Daring Do's character. Grammar, there are some grammar errors, but they're in like the second half of the story. Apparently, he kept like fixing the grammar errors as the story went along, and people kept pointing them out to him. But near the end, he kind of just forgot. He kind of forgot to clean up the grammar errors, and they're there here and there, and that's just. But it's at the end of the story, so I don't really have anything bad to say about that. The sentence structure and writing wise, again, it's a very thematic story. There's a lot of usage of idioms and metaphors throughout the entire story. It's very very coy with its work with the writing of the story and the wordplay because you kind of have to rely on that. It shows you all these intricate puzzle like elements, like here when she gets to the not this one tempestuous temple. She kind of wanders around the area and she's trying to figure out what's going on, but then she notices that there's a bunch of tiles all across the crowd, and instead of one specific tile, they're in three different colors. They're in red, green, and blue, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with them. She even gets that little touch of like she plucks a feather and puts it over one of the holes, but it doesn't really make any noise until she's still immediately suspicious and trying to figure out what's going on. And then when shit hits the fan and the steam comes and hot steam comes alive in the temple and blows up everything, it makes sense once the steam is actually popping up in areas, but the specific color of the box that has the book is not in there. So she has to travel across it, and there's even a neat moment where she like all the steam is like coalescing in this like steam wall that's trying to evaporate her heat, and she realizes, I ain't gonna get through this. So she basically puts the box with the book inside of it. She takes off her shirt, wraps it around her hooves, and slides on the book through all the steam, and then she does a handstand. So she's doing a massive through a incredibly hot steam that is like so hot that it actually would melt her bones. And she's just handstanding on like a metal crate. The only thing protecting her is a dang book, because she has to unlock the book and rip apart the page, destroy the book in order for everything to turn off. That's kind of how it goes. She finds the book. She has to destroy the book in order for everything to kind of just fall apart. It's a really well done story. It's very well written. Like you can tell right here. Again, it uses a lot of various word plays and various idioms and metaphors. It's very clever with what it's trying to tell you. It's trying to tell you just enough to keep you interested in reading, but not tell you enough to tell you what's going on, which is a very delicate balance that's used in these sort of vague like stories. I think that's really well done. But that's I don't really think that there's anything more to say about the story. Would I recommend this story? Yes, 100%. With the caveat that this story is not for everyone. There are going to be people who are going to take one look at the story, they're going to read like the first chapter, and they're going to get just completely done with it. And that's fine, because this story is very much not for everyone. But if you're willing to go into it with Daring Do, see what I did there? You're going to find a very enjoyable story that is full of creepy, amazing wonders of a very interesting take on Daring trying to transcend herself and go on this life-changing adventure. I think it's ultimately a really well done story. I have nothing really wrong with the story outside of like the couple grammar errors at the end. Favorite parts? this chapter. All of this chapter. So, for context, Daring has to, well, this chapter and the previous chapter, and Shiftings, I think it's Desert Desolation. So this is where stuff kind of starts to magnify, because at this point, Daring's like her reflection is like nearly complete with Rainbow Dash and stuff like that. She's entering the, I think it's the, yeah. She finished the temple. She destroyed the book. Um, the temple starts to fall apart, and she gets sent outside from a desert, a mountain, top of a mountain in the sky, to a random desert, and all the pieces are falling on her. So she's trying to just journey across the desert, and eventually she starts seeing these metal pieces like jutting out in the desert. And she eventually comes across this massive crater with this small rectangular formation in the center, and she even notices that it's completely circular. And so she travels into it, and she finds a deserted city, and she finds that that there was a machine in the middle, but it needs to power on. So she notices the three obelisks, and she also notices that her glowstone actually ignites the sand, because there's certain pieces of sand that glow and magnetize and float off the ground when she activates her glowstone. So she goes to the obelisk, she puts it in, and nothing's happening. So and then she realizes, she blows on it, it activates, it starts turning, and sand starts lifting, and nothing is really changing at first. But then she's kind of having to dodge the rotating pieces around the obelisk. So she gets to the second obelisk, she activates it, all the sand blows off, and then she notices the stuff that she was standing on, that wasn't sand. That was the internal organs of a gargantuan machine just start turning. Like, the imagery of Daring activating that second obelisk and then looking down and all the sand lifting off, and she doesn't see more sand. She just sees a miles of like eternal clockwork all turning on. Is honestly was a really well done storytelling development of just how it's described with like gears and pillars and conveyor belts and all that, just all working, and just her realizing that she was on top of just a machine, gigantic unknown machine. And of course, she gets to the third obelisk. She manages to activate the machine in the middle. It activates. I know she's trying to find the book inside the machine. She finds it. A hook grabs it and starts to lower it to the bottom. But then she notices all the sand that they were at the machine was making. It was basically using the sand, turning into the magic sand that she was following throughout the entire story. And the sand magnetized now turn into like matte sand ponies that relentlessly attack her. And the rest of the chapter is just her trying to dodge all the sand ponies, and also all the obelisks, which are now shooting lightning at the machine and basically starting to destroy it from slowly. And eventually, we get like the moment when she managed to get past all the ponies and she's trying to get to the bottom, and the whole thing's just falling apart on the scenes and the writing and the atmosphere and the imagery. It's so immaculate. Like, she's like hanging on for dear life, trying to get to the bottom of the machine so she can get the book and rip it. And like the rest of the sand ponies, they kind of coalesce in a sand wave, trying to burn, crush her and stuff like that. And she eventually manages to destroy the book. And as the sand falls on her, she falls into the silent city with like all the pieces of the machine kind of raining down around her. It's very immaculate. I really love the story. So yeah, I don't really have anything more to say about Scale. Yeah, it's a really well done story. I have no complaints besides some minor grammar errors at the end. That's really it. But this has been Scale by Squirts and Explosions. This has been Dark Symphony 777. And